So in this episode, we end up getting into deeper and more somber conversations. It's interesting that I actually recorded this episode a week or so ago before my entire life kind of collapsed. I'm not going to go into personal details, but if you've been following my social media, you understand that I have taken time to step back from the businesses. And the biggest lesson and biggest triumph that I've learned out of this is being prepared for your business to be life proof, for your business, especially when your family is relying on that money, for your business to continue to be able to carry you, whether it's yourself or you have a team. This is going to be episode 106 of the Business Bites podcast, and I am joined by Tash Haynes. She is a professional photographer and blogger based out of Seattle, Washington, with over 10 years of experience in entrepreneurship world as a small business owner, speaker, and coach, and a master's in public action from the University of Washington. She has a platform that exists to inspire the beginning entrepreneur, the working or stay-at-home mom, and every woman in business. You guys, she is one of the most attractive people. And I don't just mean physically, I just mean emotionally. She pours into others. You're going to feel her connection in this episode. And while many of her topics are on motherhood, faith, and family, she is going to be sharing one of the most life-altering things that she's ever gone through and how it correlates to business. This is probably one of the most important episodes that I could ever record. My heart is light and fun during the actual recording as opposed to this intro, just because life happens. So my biggest recommendation for you guys through this episode is please take a pen and paper out and make sure that you are going to life-proof your business.
Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainkey.
This episode is sponsored by Big Picture CPA. Big Picture CPA does for accounting and tax what my brand, The Law Talk, does for photographers. It is a tax resource with accounting and tax tools, as well as services that photographers can go to get, well, help with accounting and tax. In fact, Andrew and his team are my CPA firm that I trust all of my brands with, and I think you guys should check them out as well. They do bookkeeping, tax returns, file sales tax, and quarterly tax estimates, and answer all of the questions that you may have regarding taxes. No matter how stupid you may think they are, they won't make you feel stupid, and they'll definitely give you guys the insider knowledge that you need to make sure that you're making the right tax decisions in your business. Be sure to check out the website at cpa4photographers.com and let them know that I sent you. Hey Tosh, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to have you.
I'm so pumped to be here.
Guys, Tosh is one of my most favorite people. And I say that a lot on this podcast, but that's because I only really invite my favorite people. But she's incredible. You guys have heard the bio. I just want to dig right into the questions with you, Tosh. Let's start with a little bit of your background and your path to entrepreneurship, and then we'll get to the meat of talking about running a business and coming back from illness.
Yeah, so I have been a professional photographer for the last 10 years. I left the nonprofit world when I was 27 years old in 2009. So exactly 10 years. And I have been running a photography business with my husband for that time. We focus on families, high school seniors, weddings and engagements. And then we also are speaking. My kids are in the background being so loud. I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's great. It's authentic.
Real life, right? We also are speaking, teaching photographers. So we've traveled around the country probably the last 7 years or so, teaching and mentoring other photographers. We hosted a photography conference for 5 years called Blink. That did really, really well. Oh, it was so fun. And then we have a lot of like small little things and projects that we do. We have a mentorship program with high school seniors that focuses on kind of creating sisterhood and community engagement with girls. My husband is a YouTuber and has almost 200,000 followers on YouTube. And I just launched a lifestyle blog that focuses on motherhood, faith, business, and travel, family travel. a couple months ago called wisdomencourage.com. So we're doing a lot of different things and have our hands in a lot of different things. And it's been really fun to be on this like entrepreneurial journey over the last 10 years.
I love it. And one thing I just want to highlight to y'all listening, if you're looking at a way to give back to your community, check out Tosh's program that she does with these senior girls. It is inspirational, sounds cliche, but it's inspirational and definitely is a really good framework for showing how to be authentically integrated in giving back to your local community. You know, I feel like oftentimes we hear about, oh, give back. Well, you can donate at Christmas and this and that. No, Tosh and Ike show up year round to help these teenagers, to be there for them and to be a presence and an example. And so if you're thinking in your heart's there to want to do something like that, they're really good role models to look at. So
Thank you
take a
so
look
much,
at that.
Rachel.
You're
Aw.
welcome.
I mean,
Hug
and
fest.
the other thing too, just to add on, like we have done a lot in our community, but our community has done a lot for us too. And you know, as I look back over the last 10 years and all the things that we've been able to do, when we have been in a really rough spot or when we've really needed extra support, it was that sewing that we did without expecting anything in return that really blessed us in our time of need. And so it's so fun to give back, but it's like you do get a return on your investment too. So that's just a
Mhm.
little side note, little sidebar.
Well, that's a good segue kind of into talking about the illness and to come back from that. Before we mention that, though, guys, if you want the links and everything, it's going to be at rachelbreaky.com/EPI106. We're going to put Tasha's stuff there and I'll link so you can find these very specifics that we're pointing out really easily to check out. All right. So talking about the illness, and you know what's so interesting to me? You and I have history over the years. I've spoken at your conference. I love you. I love your kids. But one of the moments that stands out most to me was I came to your hotel room at that conference in Vegas to say goodbye, drop something off. And I remember how sick that you looked. And you were like, oh no, it's just a cold. I picked something up. But it wasn't just a cold. Do you want to share a bit like what happened and how you come back from that?
You know what is so crazy? I forgot that you actually came to my room. Like in this moment, I'm
Mhm,
just realizing that. That is so
mhm,
crazy. Yeah, you know, like most entrepreneurs and like working moms, I was working super duper hard and I'd come to this like culmination of being at this event that I needed to speak at in Vegas and really just feeling tired from just like
mhm,
Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the things. This was like February 2017. And I had picked up this cough that I had been to urgent care for several times. They were just like, you know, it's just like a viral thing. You're just going to have to like let it run its course. Um, but yeah, I just was like, okay, cool. It's just like, you know, how you are. You're just like, well, okay, I'll take the medicine or I'll do whatever I need to do. And you keep pushing. I thought it was just a cough. What it was the beginning of pneumonia. And when I came back home, I still pushed really, really hard. And 2 weeks after you leaving my hotel room, I had to go to the emergency room. I was on my way to speak at another conference in another city, and we were on our way to get on the airplane when I just felt like my whole body seize up. And Ike and I kind of looked at each other, and he's just like, "Are you going to be okay?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong, but I know I'm not going to get on an airplane." So we fast forward a few
mhm,
hours. We end up in the emergency room. Fast forward a few days because it took days for them to figure out what was going on with me.
mhm.
I was in heart failure. So, my little
And give some
cough,
context of how old you were at the time.
34 years old,
Oh my God.
completely and totally healthy, no
Mhm,
prior history, heart history. Um, it was the flu virus, a one that they weren't able to ever like kind of nail down. It wasn't like the one of the flus that was going around, but it was a flu virus that had actually gotten into my heart and caused my
wow.
heart to fail. So I had pneumonia and heart failure, and they were like basically tag teaming, destroying my body and my life. So
Terrifying. Absolutely
terrifying.
terrifying. So,
Absolutely terrifying. 16 days in the hospital, 6 days in
mhm,
intensive care. I'm talking like medical papers, like last will and testament had to be drawn up. I had to turn over medical care to my husband. We had to come up with plans for our then 4-year-old daughter, Wisdom. It was very scary. Um, I was getting ready to be put on a transplant list. I mean, just all of the things that I went from being healthy to being sick to almost dying in a matter of like days and hours. And so
Mhm.
it was completely and totally terrifying. And as the small business owner, especially like the lead business owner, my husband is an amazing
Mhm.
support, but he does not run this business. I run this business. When you're not working, you're not making money. And when you're sick and you're the person with all the information, you have now made it impossible for anyone to step in on your
Mhm.
behalf. And that was pretty scary for all of us.
So what have you changed with that? Now that you're back, you're healthy, it's been a few years. What have you changed in that process to prevent having putting those problems like that scariness and the on Ike during that time? And what are some things that you would put into place?
Well, I think that what I did when I came out of the hospital is I took a really hard look at, just our business setup and our life setup and how
Mhm.
intertwined they were, because that's really dangerous as well. Just like really putting boundaries and putting lines in place to separate our personal life from our business, which can often get confused because it's all kind of the same thing at the same time often. So I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time kind of reflecting on that, reflecting on what things we needed to be doing, what things we don't need to do anymore, and where we could outsource those things. And then I started looking at our business from start to finish and putting together like a notebook or a binder
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
would communicate like what needed to happen should something happen. If I was not able to talk, which in that case I wasn't, I could barely breathe. Um, and just having like checks and balances in place for support if something were to happen to me. I would have like a team or people, friends who could step in and help him and support him. If something were to happen to Ike, like what would I do? As I'm
Mhm.
raising kids and he's the one that goes out and do the jobs, like how would we? So we started thinking through and talking through those plans, and then we started thinking about our kids and their future and making sure that as we are in the midst of really thriving professionally, that we are thinking about their futures and what it is that they're going to need to do to survive and to be where they need to be. And so we got things like life insurance, and we got our girls IRAs. We started
Mhm.
educational plans. We started like really actually saving and investing in different accounts and things like that. And then we started getting our insurances in place. Um,
Mhm.
and that was the
Mhm.
big thing. When I went to the doctor, I didn't have medical insurance. When I was admitted into the hospital, I didn't have medical insurance. We had just missed the deadline, and we kind of just had this attitude
Mhm.
that we would just pay for whatever happened because we never get sick. Well, my 16 days in the hospital, I had $1.5 million bill. So
Oh my god.
yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I had echoes, I had like 7 different doctors, I had all these things. So I mean, it was just such a wake up call for the reality
Mhm.
of life. And the other thing that I've started doing is sharing my story for other small business owners and having them think about these things that are not fun to think about. Um just it's so hard to pay for things that you think you're not going to use, but you never know when you need something until you need it.
Man, that's the story of my life. And I talk about this, legal stuff's not sexy. Thinking about this stuff, especially when you're young and you've never had problems, you are like, I'm not going to need it. I'm not going to have an issue. And then you fall into it. My story is I had cancer at 20. So I had it really early on before I really got into a really successful business. So I've always kind of had that perspective, but a lot of people are never, hopefully, you're never given those life circumstances or anything like Tosh has. What I'm going to do here, and I'm glad you highlighted a whole bunch of things right there that you guys can do. Tosh outlined it very well. We're going to do a download checklist that's going to
Oh,
be on
yes.
the page. So Kim, who's listening, my podcast manager, is like, "Oh, I'm creating a checklist now." Yes, you are. So she's going to go. She's going to put those things, rachelbaker.com/EPI 106. But I want to flesh out a little bit more on like the insurance stuff here. Medical insurance, there's also key person insurance, and it's just making and life insurance. And you can also even get a disability variation. when you go to talk to an insurance company, just tell them exactly like Tosh said, I'm the primary business owner. If I get sick, if I get hurt or I die, everything's in me. Everything was on me. What can be done to help my family? And that'll be a good financial resource to have in place.
And I want to just add this because it probably, I mean, we are friends and you do this. Rachel, you've talked to me for years about putting things in place, and I've always kind of laughed you off and never like taking you
That's
seriously.
okay.
No, but here's the thing, right? So I go into this situation without these things in place. I come out of them. I am completely healthy, like work out, like very fit, all of the things. But I have a scarlet letter of a heart condition on
Mhm.
my record for the rest of my life. My heart is fully 100% healthy. It's like it never even happened. It's such a fluke. I get echoes every year. They can't find any trace of anything. People who see my heart, they're like, it looks like a healthy, functioning heart that's never had any issue. I
Insane.
cannot get life insurance because of that. Had I taken care of my situation beforehand, I would
Mhm.
have been straight. But now I have this scarlet letter and it's been impossible for me to get anyone to insure me. My family's insured, but I'm not. And that is the most frustrating situation. That was like the biggest lesson. Like when you feel prompted to do something or you feel prompted to take care of something, like you've got to do it because you just don't know how the circumstances might change. I never saw this happening in my life. And
And
it's go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, in this situation right here is really why Business Bites exist. This is why I started out doing the different brands and stuff that I have. And like I said, I had a different perspective. Mine was at 20. So it was before I even got into all this and already had that fear. I'm obviously okay and well now, but I didn't want anyone. That breaks my heart to hear that you're in that situation, especially since I love you and your family so much. And I want those listening, I want each of you guys to not be in a position like this. I often will make the joke, oh, you never have an issue till you have an issue. But it's true,
It is
and
true.
it's kind of hard to undo it all at that point. You can't.
It's true. And it's just so now I'm like, okay, now I have to make different choices because I do know that that's the reality of my situation. Like I have this heart
Mhm.
condition and I don't have a heart condition, but I mean, to anyone looking, it appears that way. And so I have to now like think, okay, long term, like, what do I need to be doing for my life and for my body to make sure that I don't have these issues because I'm not covered? And that is a really hard wake up call and awakening. Now, I believe in the Lord, so I know I'm going to be covered no matter what. However, it would be nice to have the real insurance. So, if you are seriously on the fence or if you felt this tug about doing whatever insurance, car insurance, business insurance, whatever, do not waste time. Do whatever it is that you need to do because I don't believe that like that knower, that thing that you feel inside, I don't think that's in vain. I think it's on purpose.
Very true. So let's shift. You guys can download the checklist for that, but I want to shift a bit more to your approach of transitioning as you were becoming healthier.
Mhm.
Um, how did you integrate back into doing business tasks while also not pushing yourself? In FYI, guys, this episode came out of my own personal experience this last year. I ended up sick after Ironman World Championships. I don't know if I contracted something, and it led me down a spiral of tests, found out I had lung disease, all these things. But we don't really know what happened. And when you guys, and this is what's so awesome about a lot of our episodes, they come out of what you, the listeners, want to hear. When you guys were reaching out to me on social media asking, oh, well, how are you working while you're sick? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing it. I don't really have any tips. And so Tosh was the one I wanted to bring on of, I mean, what do you tell people when you're going through this? I guess share your experience in how to manage it all. Obviously, health is number one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we are not an island. We definitely need support. And so I think coming back, as I think about, coming back, I came back very slowly. I
Hmm.
used the opportunity and the grace to really redesign my life and reset things up. And I think when you have like a near death experience or an illness or a loss of some
Hmm.
sort, there is a lot of grace from people around you for you to kind of figure stuff out. And I think I really spent time thinking about what it was that I wanted from my business and for my life. And I started kind of making that my rule of thumb and creating those boundaries. And so coming back for me was really like like a restart, I guess, in some ways. It was like a restart of how my business would exist in the world and how I would exist in that business. And
Mhm.
so, one of the, I mean, some of the main, I guess, themes I would say that came up was just like, first and foremost, I come first,
Mhm.
before everyone,
Mhm.
because I cannot function and be who I need to be to anyone around me if I'm not putting myself first. So I started really thinking about like, what are the things that make me happy? What are the things that renew me? What are the things that keep me going when things get tough? When I feel overwhelmed by business, like what things restore me? And I made sure those things were in place. And then it was like, where are the boundaries between work and my family? And when does work stop? And that was something that I never really had before. I feel like I worked really hard for 8 years and never stopped, and work was always the priority. But here's the thing, like what's for you is for you, and nothing can be taken from you if it's for you. So you can stop. You don't have to work yourself to the bone. And
Mhm.
then as like different circumstances would come up, I would just start thinking, okay, like, is this worth it? And if it is worth it, like, what makes it worth it? And if it's not worth it, am I willing to bend to make it worthwhile? Just those kinds of questions. And so I think the biggest thing was just establishing boundaries. And I think when people end up being sick, it usually comes from being worn out. And it usually comes from a lack of like boundaries or a lack of like self care. And so, coming back to work was really just like an assessment of those things and making sure those things were in place and making sure that I was protected and that I was doing things that made sense. And I think like a lot of us as business owners, we allow our business to drag us because we're like so hungry for opportunity and so hungry for next level. We don't spend a lot of time just like sitting in where we are and really thinking about the strategy behind it. And I think strategy is the key to everything, even in staying alive and like functioning, right? Like you got to have like a plan for like how you're going to take care of yourself. So I think that's how I came back. I don't know if that's like really helpful to anyone, but I think that the biggest thing that we need is permission to take care of ourselves and to slow down and to do things the way that feel right
Mhm.
for us and not on someone else's timeline or the way that someone else does it or the way that we believe different industries have called us to live. Like we are in control of our own
Mhm.
destiny and we're the only ones that answer that. So,
And that can be difficult too if you're the primary breadwinner, obviously,
mhm.
and everything is on you. So when you said you came back slowly, are you talking you maybe started doing like minimal tasks every day? Maybe you're only doing once a week. What did it structurally look like in your
Yeah, that's
schedule?
a really great question. I came back slowly, so I took the time to heal. And I want to say that from March of 2017 until probably the fall, so September, October, I didn't shoot or work at all. But I will say this, it was because our community came through for us. So all of that
Mm,
sewing and all that loving and all of that we did and all that giving back, when we were down and out, like it was our photography community, our local community, that one of our friends set up a caring fund for us. And we raised like $35,000. And so that gave my family time to really like slow down, and it gave Ike
mhm,
the opportunity to take care of me. When I came out of the hospital, I ended up with reactive arthritis. So I couldn't walk and couldn't like use my hands and my arms and stuff. So there was a lot of like rehab that had to happen after that. And so there wasn't a lot of work that could happen, but it was because of like the money that people sent, the meals that people provided, we were able to slow down
mhm,
and really take time to kind of come back. When I did start shooting again, I had shorter sessions. Um, I really streamlined my communication so that I was communicating
mhm,
less and didn't have to do as much. Like I really
mhm,
started looking at systems and putting systems in place. Um, and even some of our, in this last season of life, this last year with our new baby that we just had, we lowered our prices a little bit so that we could spend less time with clients, because for us, like, our time and our freedom was more valuable even than the money that we were making. And
mhm,
so we adjusted our income and adjusted our style of living so that we could spend less time on clients and more time with our family. And that was what felt right for us in these last couple of seasons of our life. And so I think, like, again, just sitting down and thinking about like what makes the most sense for you structurally for your business to carry out your life the way that you need to, and then doing that.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes that means sacrificing. Maybe that means like a few less vacations or a few less time, times eating out during the month, or maybe you don't get gear. We don't upgrade our gear every year. We haven't upgraded our gear in a while. There are just things that we just don't do, so that we can do other things. And so there's a cost, right? No matter what you do. So it's just really figuring out what cost is worth it for whatever sacrifice you're making.
And let me ask you this. Do you guys have people that work for you contract or employee basis, or is it just you and Ike?
It's Ike and I. We have a makeup artist on staff. We have a stylist. We hired one of our high school girls who has been working. So we have a stylist. We actually hired Wisdom and Courage as child models.
I love it.
So they're on
They
staff.
are so modelish. I love them so
And because
much.
they receive a paycheck, they're also able to invest in an IRA. So
Mhm.
that is one of our things. And then we have an accountant who does all of our accounting, all of our taxes, all of those things. And so that's what we do. That's it.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that it would have been easier during the event had you had somebody to be able to manage communications that wasn't Ike, so that I could solely focus on you? I mean, what is your looking back, what's your perspective of having even like a virtual assistant to help manage and keep that stuff rolling
100%.
for
I do. I
you?
do
Mhm.
think that that would have been helpful and would have been amazing. And I think that one day I would love to get to that point. I think my struggle has always been that I like my voice is such a huge part of our business, and I can't imagine turning that over. But I am learning that like it is so important to give those small things up so that you can move into like the bigger things that you want to do. And there's so
Yeah,
many
but
things
think
that I
about
want to
this.
do.
You're saying it's your voice, but when you were laying in the bed, girl, you weren't talking.
I know. That's that's the whole thing, right? No, you're absolutely right. So yeah, I do think that that would be amazing and key. But
Mhm.
also for more than just that, just for like
Right, agreed.
scaling your business to the like the next level. Like there are other things that Ike and I want to do, right? So he's doing his YouTube thing, I'm doing my lifestyle blog thing. It'd be wonderful to have a virtual assistant handling our day-to-day Ike and Tosh stuff that we worked so hard and built, that's already
Mhm.
foundationally like solid, so that we can work on building these other things. So 100%, I think that that would be an incredible asset to us or any business person who's looking like long
Agreed.
term to scale their business.
Well, I was even thinking in this, I mean, yeah, I agree with that, but I was thinking of the sentiment of even just creating relationships. Maybe this is a business idea, but creating relationships with virtual assistants who you may not need all the time, but that are already knowledgeable, have access to your processes and flows so that if something does happen, you can call on them. Like you don't pay them, or maybe there's a minimal retainer amount, but then they come in the event that something happens and they can pick right up. They don't there's no onboarding type process, right?
Right.
I
They
would
just
have
have
been able
enough
to say,
information to
hey,
keep going. Yeah, I
mhm,
love that. I love that. I think it's a great idea. Somebody steal that
then
idea and make it happen.
right. Ike and
Rachel and I are
Ike
too
and Tash
busy.
and I, too many businesses. We have way too much going on here. So someone do that. I love that. So what do you think? I mean, I kind of already heard this, but I just want to finish off with what is the biggest lesson that you've learned personally and professionally? So I guess two lessons out of this illness in having trying to come back from it.
Personal and professional. Wow. So the biggest lesson personally that I've learned after all of the things that have happened over the last 2 years is that what we have is today. And
Mm,
I don't wait. Like if I have a desire, or if I want to eat a piece of food, or if I want to whatever, if I want to go somewhere, I just am like, let's do it. Like, I think a lot of people work really hard their whole lives for their dreams that they hope to live out later in life, but we are not guaranteed that. And so I think that life is about living and enjoying now, presently. And so I live my life now, and I don't worry about tomorrow. And I don't spend a lot of time on the past either. I just really try to be in the moment. Professionally, what I've learned is that if you build something that is solid, and that is strong and that's integrous, um, you don't have to make a comeback. People have
Mm,
grace for you, and they will ride that wave with you. But I think that comes with treating people well and being kind and producing good quality product content relationship.
mhm,
I felt like our lives were over when I got sick, and I learned that it was really just a pivot, and that when you are good to people, people are good to you, and they'll take you wherever you are. I haven't posted on social media probably for 2 years consistently, and we are study getting followers, study, like, the support is there. But I think that comes from being a good business person and treating people with kindness and respect and being genuine and not always trying to like see how you can get something. I think it comes from being a giver. So
mhm.
those are the two things I think that I learned from this situation.
That's incredible. Thank you, Tosh. I love how you've walked it through, gave us a checklist, walked through structurally and some great tips. Guys, if you have any questions at all, dig into the Business Bites podcast Facebook group. We will be answering and providing other resources there. And we're also going to link the checklist, all of Tosh's stuff, so you can check her and Ike out, as well as some resources on insurance and other topics we talked about here. RachelBranky.com/EPI 106.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.